920 London is a book that not many people have read. I think that's a bit of a shame, because 920 London, like most things made by Remy Boydell, has some really beautiful art and watercolors in it. Since so few people have read it, though, let me give you a little bit of background and a short synopsis. 920 London was the second main release by Remy Boydell, the first being a graphic novel called The Pervert, which is about a trans sex worker who begins to lose prospects, face transphobia, and have everything fall apart as she begins to transition. Many people connected with that book and liked it, but some fans who read 920 London when it came out felt confused. This story is about a trans woman named Hana and a cis woman named Kiki, who were previously in a lesbian relationship, but now just kinda cohabitate. They are both struggling with mental illness, and Kiki is primarily struggling with issues surrounding the desire to be famous and trying to thrive after experiencing a traumatic relationship, while Hana is struggling with depression, anxiety, and wishing the world would end. I think that part of the confusion surrounding 920 London is that it feels strange and disconnected when you read it at a literal level. Like, if you read it as if it's just about a girl who wants to grow magic mushrooms and a girl who wants to become famous, it doesn't connect very well, and it doesn't feel that compelling. But when you read between the lines and see the focus on mental illness, the whole book just comes together. I think that's one of the main reasons Boydell includes a note at the end of the book talking about this. So, now that I've given you some background, I can break into some analysis, starting with a discussion of Hana. Hana serves a bit of a dual role as both character and narrator. We constantly see her inner thoughts on matters in a way that we don't see from Kiki. Hana is also focused on the day-to-day, to the point that she can't even see a future for herself. At times, Hana's story is mainly a window into trans experiences, but also into the experiences of someone who is constantly struggling with depression and anxiety. The all-consuming nature of Hana's mental illnesses are hard to cope with, which is why she feels that she needs psilocybin, magic mushrooms, to survive, and why she thinks she needs to die, or that she will commit suicide. She feels she can't escape from the brutal and oppressive nature of reality without mind-altering drugs. Ever since Hana broke up with Kiki, her life has been crumbling. For example, Kiki is able to meet new people and go on dates, but Hana's codependent. She feels jealous that Kiki is able to move on without her. Further, Hana feels like nothing she does can help, like when we are shown a scene where Hana is in therapy, but all the dialogue is blacked out, and we are shown close-ups of whatever Hana is looking at. It feels oppressive, and it's no wonder Hana couldn't show up again. Furthermore, Hana has even the simple joys in her life soured, like when we see her picking a chestnut from a tree, but then we see her stare at an elderly woman that is menacingly watching her. Hana just can't catch a break, and it makes her life look bleak. Like, literally, her life is sometimes drawn in black and white to show how bleak it feels, and to show the depressed, mechanical headspace that Hana starts most mornings in. And this is made worse by her anxiety, which shuts her in the house, making it hard for her to leave and go out. And so, Hana becomes a representation of depression and anxiety, as well as the desire to escape from it. Interestingly, Hana has two different versions of a desire for the end of the world. Both a desire based in depression for the world to end so that all her worries will be over, but also an anxious fear that the apocalypse is going to happen, or that her actions will trigger the end of the world. This is both scary and relieving to Hana, due to these dual desires and mentalities surrounding the idea of the end of the world. Multiple examples of these things are present, so let's take a moment to look through them. A discussion of the end of the world is actually how the book starts, with mention of how happy people don't start believing in the end of the world. And this start is intrinsically linked to the ending of the graphic novel, as the start shows an explosion referenced in the ending. Regardless, this moment, along with the moment where Hana says that sometimes it is comforting to imagine the world will end when her first mushroom cap opens up, and also one point in the novel when Hana asks Kiki if she ever thinks about the end of the world, are examples of these feelings and desires. It is a bit of an obsession, it seems like, something that Hana thinks about, daydreams about, and when you're depressed and anxious, it hits you in the dual way I mentioned, where it is linked to your anxiety, but it also feels comforting. This is why immediately after Hana saying that she makes notes about how her mushroom cap opening up will end the world, she, almost as a non sequitur, says, "When I start getting full body panic sensations, I literally just lie on the ground until it goes away." Similarly, death is another constant on Hana's mind. She jokes about how, when she found out mushrooms are illegal in a place where she used to get them, they should make it legal for me to get euthanized. Worse, this is something that she jokes about with Kiki often enough that Hana and Kiki both say, "You're scaring me," with Kiki lightly laughing afterwards, possibly as an awkward or nervous laugh. Like I said, death is a constant on the mind of Hana, and it is clear that this isn't a joke from small details like how the frame where Hana says she wishes she could get euthanized, the whole area behind her is pitch black, as if a direct symbol of the depression that is constantly looming over her. Hana also sometimes glorifies death, wishing she could go out like some sort of angel in front of a train or a bus, and Kiki is quick to give Hana a reality check saying, "It won't be like that. You know it'll hurt really bad, right? And if it does work, you won't be here to feel relieved." Kiki scrambles to do what she can to put Hana at ease, but these all make clear the severity of the panic and anxiety and depression Hana lives with. I do want to take a moment as an aside, though, to say that this constant conversation with Kiki about Hana's desire to commit suicide borders on abusive, if not just being abusive, full stop. This is not Hana saying that she has struggles with suicidal ideation, or trying to talk about a suicide plan so it can be poked full of holes. The scene where Hana talks about jumping in front of a bus happens when Hana realizes that all 3 batches of mushrooms she is trying to make will probably rot and die out. Kiki asks Hana what she would do if the last one rots like the first 2, and Hana's response is to say that she would walk in front of a bus. This moment, and the frequency in which Hana will comment on wanting to die or be euthanized, is upsetting. Even more upsetting is that Hana will make these comments enough to know what Kiki will say in response. These aren't conversations to be had while walking back to a train, nor is it a healthy way to discuss this stuff in the first place. Part of why I think Hana is so willing to talk about these things as often as she does is because she's become desensitized to the ideas, and her life feels bleak, awful, and full of uncertainties. One of the early points in which this gets introduced is how Hana admits that her relationship with Kiki is falling apart, and this is made clear when she says, "We don't fuck anymore. We're just codependent." This happens right above an image of a car crash, which seems confusing until we see the next page, where she describes how she has to imagine awful things happening to her in order for her to get off. The awful aspects of Hana's life, of reality itself, haunt her, even in her most intimate moments. But the bleakness of her world is also shown in the ways in which a happy day can be ruined by otherwise innocuous things. For example, I mentioned earlier how Hana went to pick chestnuts after she did some shopping. The elderly woman who stares at her seems absolutely menacing, and this is furthered by the fact that she is depicted as human. In Remy Boydell's work, the furries and anthro animals are typically representations of people who are queer and who are main characters, and it's typically cishet people who are depicted as humans, especially when they are clocking or harassing a character. And so, in this context, it is made even clearer the dread that is tied to this woman, as Hana both confronts her social anxiety, the realization that she is being seen, and also she's likely facing a fear of being clocked, all at the same time. These are the sorts of fears and feelings that can ruin a day. There are many moments depicted in black and white or in minimal colors which show the bleak view of Hana. This is seen in moments when she talks about how it is depressing that Kiki bought red Solo cups so her parties would seem like the ones on TV, or a moment during a train ride where Hana seems to be disassociating, being baked alive by her thoughts and also by her lack of thoughts, wanting anything to make this experience more bearable. The final moment, which utilizes this minimal color scheme, is one which shows Hana getting ready for the day. While the sink isn't full of dishes, the scene is still full of clutter. These scenes all show the ways in which Hana will stare off, barely existing, But when she is fully present, it is bleak and depressing and full of thoughts that tend to be cruel, whether this cruelness is directed at herself or at others. Hana is so occupied with this that she is barely able to function, let alone think of the future or make progress in the things she wants to achieve. There is a scene where Hana and Kiki get into a fight because Kiki met a guy at a party that she's interested in. Hana is frustrated and asks, "Why do you think this will make you happy?" To which Kiki replies, "Stop acting like we're still dating because you're jealous, okay?" That's the sort of thing which is harsh and hard to hear, but clearly necessary, as Hana admits she is jealous and laments how it fucks her up that things like dating are easier for Kiki than it is for her. Hana states early in the story that the two of them are just codependent, but they're beginning to drift apart as well. Later, Kiki asks Hana what she will do once Kiki graduates, and she just has no idea and draws a total blank. Hana can't think about the future, can't make any progress, can't meet people, can't go on dates, all because she is too focused on barely surviving and the everyday battles of depression and anxiety to do anything else. It's heartbreaking. The bleak life that Hana leads is the reason why she is trying so hard to escape her life via psilocybin. The entire hinge that connects Hana's arc is her searching for magic mushrooms. The mushrooms are equated to a level of grandeur akin to a deity at times, like when Hana is first trying to grow her initial batches of mushrooms, and she says how it's kind of like she is praying to the mushrooms. The process is no longer in their hands. The mushrooms grow greater and greater in importance as the story progresses. Yes, Hana is discussing how she finds it comforting to imagine the opening of the first cap will bring about the end of the world, but, in a sense, it would bring about an end of the world, and that it would bring about an end of her world of horror, depression, and anxiety. Even if it was just for a little bit, Hana would be able to escape it all. Similarly, Hana feels like if the mushrooms never open up, and they all rot and go bad, it will also be the end of her world, which is why she threatens to commit suicide if they all go bad. So much is riding on this, that Hana ends up being trapped in this liminal space where all she's doing is waiting for these mushrooms. Ultimately, Hana is left unable to do the things that would actually let her escape her cycles of depression and anxiety. Hana is only living her life in a tangential sense right now, as she seems to often get lost in moments of disassociation. This happens in the train, and it seems like it happens while Hana sees her psychologist. If it isn't disassociation, then she is just blocking out the memories for one reason or another. Regardless, there is something surrounding the psychologist visits that makes seeing one impossible for Hana right now, even though Kiki recommends it a few times. And so, Hana is left with no out. This is why suicide is always on her mind, because it feels like there's nothing besides death that will end her struggles. Everything is difficult, everything is draining, everything is so easily ruined, and so Hana thinks about suicide, about the end of the world, about escaping via drugs. And yet, Remy Boydell says in a final note that these things are things that people can pass through and that they can survive. But for now, it's time for us to discuss Kiki. The best place to start when discussing Kiki is ultimately to begin with her past relationships and the trauma she has suffered in them. Hana says early on that she and Kiki are codependent, but it also seems like they aren't really in a relationship anymore. Either this happens off-screen during the story, or they aren't really in a relationship at the start. Either way, their relationship is complicated, and it is further complicated by the ways that Hana treats Kiki. Early in the story, we get quite a bit of insight as to how Kiki's last relationship went, when she sees a tour poster of her ex's band while she is in the metro, and her face just looks utterly distraught. When Hana asks if that was Kiki's ex, she says it was, a tear already beginning to form in the corner of her eye. We can instantly tell that this relationship has left lasting effects on Kiki. Pretty soon after, this encounter fills Kiki with a desire to become popular and famous as a way to get back at Jake Price, her singer ex. We see throughout this graphic novel that Kiki has tried to get involved with famous people and has gotten abused by them. Price talked about how the two of them could be a kind of power couple, and now Kiki seems determined to get famous on her own, partially to get back at him, like I mentioned before, by showing that she doesn't need to be part of a power couple, she can get famous of her own merit. It also seems like she hopes that being famous will mean she won't get hurt or used by other people anymore. Hana seems oblivious as to what is causing this all, saying how sometimes Kiki just gets into these obsessive moods, and how Kiki just needs to work it out of her system. And Hana remains clueless throughout the story, never realizing that Kiki's actions are a response to trauma. One morning, Hana wakes up to find Kiki hate listening to music by Price, while trying to tear up some clothes and make some outfits that she can serve up as some solid scene looks. Both Hana and Kiki are so consumed with their own desires in these moments, to the point that they feel unwilling or unable to listen to the other. This is shown in scenes where Hana complains that Kiki isn't listening to her whenever she talks about growing mushrooms, and in moments when Hana isn't listening to Kiki talk about her trauma. Neither of them are fully able to listen to the other, and their respective wounds are fully visible in this scene I'm about to discuss. When Kiki is asked to tell a story, the first one she can think of is one of abuse and assault, a scene in which Price consistently oversteps Kiki's boundaries during a date, and then tells her that she should go see a psychiatrist if he was fucking her up so badly. Immediately after this story is told, when Hana is asked what she would do if the final batch of mushrooms go bad, her first response is that she would commit suicide. Hana and Kiki are codependent, yes, but their relationship is also dysfunctional, as they are traumatizing each other with their discussions of trauma and suicide, and all they are left able to do is try their best to use whatever energy they have to support themselves and each other. While it might be an imperfect attempt, Kiki is still trying her best to hope for and achieve change in all of this. Kiki decides that if she is broken up with Price and it still wounds her, then she is going to gain her own sense of power by becoming popular and famous. At times, she tries to grab onto anything that gives her this sensation, grasping at straws to become famous by any means necessary. However, it makes sense that when she is trying so hard because of how abusive her ex was, and how, as Kiki says, "When I met him, I thought we were going to be this power couple. He went back to dating fans after we break up. The girl he's with now just turned 16. I'm old." Obviously, this is fucked up on many levels, and Kiki's multiple experiences have created a variety of complexes within her, so it makes sense that she wants so badly to become popular. It also makes sense that she feels like she has to look hot, or why she wants to get a publicist. Kiki feels like it's the only way to regain power, to make these wounds stop hurting. Is this actually a healthy way to deal with this? No. But this is also something she works through during the entire story. Interestingly, Kiki knows that being famous won't make her happy, and it isn't something she would enjoy. But as she says, it's not about what I enjoy. It's about what gives her the power that would make her feel like she could avoid being treated the same way again. And so, Kiki wants to be famous and popular, and is quick to cling to a punk she meets, and begins to do CO2 whippets to fit in and feel cool. This leads to an iconic moment where Kiki says, "My pee is mixing with his pee." Kiki wants so desperately to be with this guy, because of even the minimal amount of fame he could be used to achieve, which is made clear when she says, "He said I could be a model for Homicide Girls. He does graffiti. Why don't you want me to be happy?" Hana returns to her earlier question and says, "Why do you think that this will make you happy?" Kiki is convinced in this moment that this will make her happy, but in reality, it was never about being happy. It's exactly like she said before. It's about power and posturing. Although, to an extent, this attempt to become famous is also rooted in Kiki's desire to be adored by others. Kiki has been struggling with making friends and wishing she was popular for quite a long time. She discusses this a bit while talking about how she primarily hung out with her stepbrother's friends when she was younger, but is distressed because her brother said that all of those friends secretly hated her. Kiki seems confused, uncertain as to what she even did, but seems to not realize that this is likely just due to being the younger sister who would hang out with her brother and his friends. It's just kind of typical in this situation for the friends to not like her as much. But this is a bit of an enlightening cycle because it begins to show the ways in which Kiki will cyclically try to seek the acceptance of groups which she looks up to or finds to be popular in some way, but she is ultimately let down by these groups for one reason or another. This is partially because she faces more hardships, just like all women who exist in a patriarchal society. However, there is an extent to which Kiki is being set up for disappointment in one form or another, just like how there was a skate park nearby when she was younger that she says, "It felt like a secret party I wasn't invited to, but when I actually went, it was all a bit shit." Kiki always wants to get involved in these parties and events and groups, but she is always let down. So why does she try so hard to gain access to these communities and locations in the first place? Well, primarily FOMO. As Kiki and Hana begin to leave a goth club they went to, Kiki just looks absolutely melancholic. She says, "I feel like we're missing out, being stuck outside of America and that, and how there isn't anyone famous at the goth clubs." Kiki is tearing up even as she says this, a look of sadness and distress already playing over her face, and she begins to truly cry as she says, "I don't want to die in England." Kiki wants so desperately to become famous, to meet famous people, to go to the US because it feels like greener pastures. She feels trapped here in London, where she gets reminded of her abusive ex, and where she feels stuck in a liminal space. Her thoughts have been invaded with the desire to just get out, and this is one of her primary focuses at this point, and Hana seems to understand none of it. Hana's immediate response is, "Don't take this the wrong way, but have you eaten today?" The answer is no, but this just makes Kiki bawl as Hana awkwardly holds her, uncertain of what to do next. Hana, still unable to understand, says how Kiki, in sixth form, spent tons on these imported red plastic cups so her party would look like the ones on TV. Bare depressing. Hana and Kiki really are codependent, but they are totally unable to connect with each other anymore, unable to really understand the needs and desires of the other, unable to understand the trauma and the depression and anxiety that colors all of these moments, and most of all, unable to help process any of these feelings. They just live in the same house together and sometimes cuddle or sleep in the same bed. In this way, cycles of abuse are created and further entrenched in the way Kiki interacts with the world. She has a fear of missing out, and then tries to get involved with a group or band or community, and often she is hurt. She is put at a low point where she desires power and fame, so it'll feel like she can't be hurt again, and thus the cycle continues. This is brought to a head in an especially evocative dream sequence. As Kiki is walking through her dreamscape, she appears as a child, which is confirmed in an image where she seems small in comparison to the pumpkins surrounding her. Eventually, Kiki comes across a mostly deserted concert stage. She approaches a band that is nearby, and the singer begins talking about how he was waiting for her, waiting for all the time that she felt weird and alone, and now everything is going to be good. But during all of this, the band member begins to salivate, and drool begins to spill onto Kiki's head as she begins to cry. It is surely quite the representation of grooming taking place here. And so, not even in her dreams can Kiki escape these cycles, and further, these dreams may be speaking to some of her past experiences. No wonder Kiki wants to run away from England. Part of what she wants is to escape all of these memories, and these constant cycles of abuse. At the end of the story, a reality must be faced. Things may change, but change always takes more time than you want. Remy Boydell writes a note at the end saying that these phases of trying to thrive after abuse and struggling with feelings surrounding the end of the world are phases that people can work through. However, neither Hana nor Kiki have a satisfying conclusion in these regards. As Kiki gets excited to go on a date with the graffiti artist who plays in a band, not even an explosion will stop her from going to the gig. Many things have changed, but many things have stayed the same. And so, what do you do when you're trapped in a rut or in a cycle that makes your life worse? Typically, the solution is to realize that this rut or cycle exists, that you exist within it, and when this realization is made, it becomes possible to think of the ways to get out of it that previously hadn't occurred to you. However, it's not an easy or quick process, and so we must assess our situations, understand the cycles, and try our best to move forward. Some things stay the same, some things don't, but the goal is trying your best to seek changes that make your life better. After all, it feels like Remy Boydell is, if not trying to end us on a positive note for change, is at least trying to say that things can change. And so, I want to take some time to agree with Boydell. Things really can change, and every day we can hope for things to be a little bit better. As a short aside, you may or may not have noticed, but this video is made from scans of a physical version of 920 London that I kinda destroyed while making this video. For that reason, I'd like to ask you to like, comment, subscribe, etc. if you so desire. Thank you again, and go forth in your algorithm improving action.